I want to thank so many of y'all for coming out today, so many of the firefighters for being here today, Interim Chief Keith Jackson, Councilmember Julian Beard representing our council today, Public Safety Commissioner Clay Mason, and Lieutenant Chris Bartley, who's president of the International Association of Firefighters Local 526. Thank you all for being here today. Today I'm announcing plans for us to hire 25 new firefighters into vacant positions that have become open because of retirements. But first, we will be conducting a careful review of the city's budget and revenues. Now, we all know that it's going to be hard for the city budget to afford 25 new firefighters, but it's going to be harder for us not to. Public safety is our top priority, and I'm convinced that the public safety requires more firefighters today. With these new hires, we will reduce the time fire equipment is taken out of service because of personnel shortages, what's the so-called brownouts. Interim Chief Jackson will have more to say on that in just a few minutes. Just for context now, there were 39 retirements from fire announced at the end of 2011. When we saw we were going to have so many of these retirees, we took another look at staffing numbers and at Chief Jackson's plan to maintain public safety and deal with the workforce reduction. I just want to recognize Chief Jackson and the entire command staff for the hard work that was put in on this plan. As we discuss the issues as the council, Councilmember Beard and other council members discuss these issues, and we continued to look at the numbers and begin to balance the need for public safety with our current budget, with the anxiety and the concerns within the department itself, within our force. We recognize the need to fill these vacancies. These retirements, these 39 retirements, reduce the workforce. But because of the retirement payouts, there was even more pressure on the current budget. So what I'm describing here is a lot of moving parts in this decision process. But you know what we've all learned is that that's what leadership is all about, dealing with these sorts of difficult and challenging problems. But in this year's budget, we've concluded that we want to hire these additional firefighters, and we have to find the money. Now, before the hiring proceeds, we'll be conducting a thorough budget review. There have been many changes since we approved the budget last June, and most of them have come with a price tag. But these are new and required expenditures. So we will be taking a step back and doing a deep, in-depth look at the budget and identify additional expenses and additional cuts that are necessary. And we expect that the hiring process itself will begin in February or March. After the new recruits are hired, they will undergo 16 to 18 weeks of training. Recruits hired in February would be on the streets, expected to be on the streets, responding to emergencies by mid-June, when summer vacation session begins. Now I'd like to introduce Interim Chief Keith Jackson, who's been working, as I said earlier, really hard to hold the line on expenses and to manage and lead this department responsibly, efficiently, and effectively. Chief Jackson.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, staff, members of the press, mayor, commissioner, councilman. The hiring of these 25 firefighters will address a major concern that we have reference to shortages in personnel. I'm especially glad that we will be hiring or having these recruits on the line during the vacation season, which will provide the citizens of Lexington that safe feeling that they are expecting and require. So we're looking forward to the class starting, and we especially want to thank the mayor and the council for looking into our issues and our concerns on behalf of the fire department executive staff and the union, who have worked collectively to make this work. So we look forward to continuing the safe practices and making the citizens of this community feel safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Next, I'll introduce Councilmember Julian Beard. Now, many of you all were in the last council session before the Christmas break, and that's when there was a good and healthy discussion about this issue, which is what the council is all about. And Councilmember Beard was one of the first to say, you know, it looks like we're going to need to get this process underway. It looks like we're going to need to get at least the paperwork going, and that's what this is about today. It's about the way in which we work together to solve problems. And I'd like for Councilmember Beard, who's been a strong advocate for public safety and representing the council, if he'll speak right now. Sure. Julian, thank you, sir.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mayor. He referenced a encounter, I guess, for lack of a better term, back in November when I did make from the Horseshoe upstairs a comment about getting started, at least, on a new class, not knowing exactly when and how. And I guess a lot of people would want to take credit for that. I don't mind taking credit for it if everybody wants to give it to me, but I really think, in all probability, they were already doing what I'd asked them to do anyway. So it's more Chief Jackson and his folks, the mayor, who should get the credit. We in the council, I would say almost to all 15 individuals, is very concerned, obviously, about the budget, but also about the public safety component of the budget, and that includes the police and fire and corrections primarily. Did I leave Deem out? I shouldn't do that. And we've said and said again that public safety is our #1 job. And if so, we need to keep the pattern going through the years so that we'll have a pipeline of individuals who can step in, help initially, but step in if there are a bunch of retirements, illnesses, any number of reasons why people would leave. And we would want that process, rather than to be an individual decision by the council that we want you to do this or we want you to do that, that all that's been set up and in place, and we just go forward with it, as I'm sure we'll have to. Again, I want to thank everybody that's involved in getting this thing done. I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next I get to introduce Chris Bartley, and Chris is one of those folks that doesn't need an introduction at all, but I will share the context, a little bit of context, as we were talking earlier just before the press conference. Chris and I were talking about what this represents, and he and I both used the word efficiency. I look at that banner back there, and it talks about running government efficiently as one of our cornerstones. The word efficiency sometimes has the impression, or gives the impression, that it's all about cost, that it's all about what things cost. But I think when we really look at it, and this is what Chris was saying, when we really look at that word carefully and deeply, we know that efficiency has a lot more to do than just with cost. It has to do with the efficient management of resources, our personnel. It has to do with morale. It has to do with the way in which we know folks get up in the morning with a willingness and a desire and an inspiration to go to work and to give their best. So what we're talking about in all of this is what Chris Bartley has represented and has described many times, and that is creating a workplace that inspires folks and gives them that motivation every day. So Chris, I want to thank you for the advocacy that you always bring to the table, and please share with us any thoughts that you have this morning. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. It's a very exciting day for this department, this union, and the citizens of Lexington. I want to thank the mayor and his staff, Chief Jackson and his administration as well, and the council, and more importantly the union and the citizens, because the citizens are the real winners in this. Through our information and through some of the pressures put on by public officials, we were able to get this done through a professional attitude and the facts that were given. The mayor hit on efficiency. This department runs on manpower. With all the technology in the world, to provide a safe environment for not just us but the citizens, and to provide the quality service that we have always provided this city, it needs manpower, and that is what we need, and that's what we're going to get, hopefully here in the next few months. I also look forward with the administration on working on what's called a SAFER grant that was just approved by Congress at the middle of December. Sort of like the COPS program that just hired 25 officers. We're looking at working with the administrations of both the city and the fire department on winning some more SAFER grant awards to hire more firefighters. So with that, it is a great day for Lexington, and look forward to helping in the hiring of this class. Thank you very much.
Chris, thanks. I said earlier that Chris is a great advocate for his membership, and in every respect. I was going to say to him a little earlier that who knows that this time next December we may be putting up that Christmas tree one way or another together. So, buddy. I always said you've got to take your job seriously, but not ourselves. Isn't that right, man?
That's a good one.
All right. Y'all got any questions? We're happy to take any questions. My goodness, that was a new ring on the phone, wasn't it?
When was
Chris? Yes, sir.
You just mentioned about having some federal money that maybe gets us some more. With that being asked, what's a real number that you're comfortable with? Is it 40? Is it 45? That would make you go home feeling good at night?
What I want is more of a process.
You want to step up out here, and then we might let.
What we would look at in working with the city would be, there's always going to be about 20 to 25 people that retire every year. So there should always be a pipeline already started, and then you can adjust that hiring in January or whatever based upon if there's less than 25, you only hire that. Just have somebody always ready in the pipeline is what we're ready for, and just get our numbers up to where we're properly staffed safely.
25 does that, just as a
25 is a start. And so we're wanting to keep our levels, I think currently we're at 480, and we would like to keep our numbers, last year we were staffed at 545. And, around that range would be my wanting. And but I know budget constraints and everything else going on, but we're willing to work with the city. So.
Okay.
when was the last fire recruit class?
Chief Jackson, you remember? You got that? This guy was working on administration exactly that time. You want to come on up, Keith?
Yeah, February of 2010 was the last class, and that's Battalion Chief Greg Stapleton, who will be the primary instructor of the recruit class. He runs the training division. So if I lean to him, that'll be the reason why, because I don't have all the answers sometimes. Great historian. Great historian. So the last class was February 10th.
That's when I graduated.
Of 2010.
Right. So can I just check, so you have 480 people on staff now?
Currently, we have 480 firefighters on staff.
And your ideal number would be what?
The ideal number per the ordinance is 526. We have 480. We hired this class that put us at 505. For the management purposes, to ensure that all services and we continue to keep the morale up, we need to be around 520.
You were talking a little bit about the brownouts. How much does this offset, if at all, the amount of brownouts you guys will end up having over the year?
It reduces it. It minimizes it as a long-term effect with the division. We routinely, as we train, as we have different incidents throughout the day, there's holes within the city, so the effect of the brownouts will be reduced greatly with the implementation of the class.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you all very much.